What is up, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls? Protocol Pegasus here, bringing back to you guys in Remnant from the Ashes, and today we'll be taking a look at my all-new Twisted Gladiator build. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it, shall we? Take a look at my character sheet here. I am using the handgun known as the submachine gun. Tied into is the weapon mod known as Hunter's Mark. From there, I'm using the long gun known as the shotgun. Tied into it is the weapon mod known as Mender's Aura. For my melee weapon, I'm using the Scrapper Sword. Tied into it are no bonuses. From there, I'm using the Gladiator set, aka the Scrapper set. From there, I'm using the helmets, chest piece, and legs. Tied into this is the Challenger perk. From there, I'm using the Twisted Idol for my necklace. For my ring, I'm using the Band of Pollocks. And for my secondary ring, I'm using Band of the Caster. Now, on to traits. Alright, my traits are going to be as followed. I'm using Vigor, which increases my health by 50. I'm using Endurance, which increases stamina by 50. And I'm using Warrior, which increases melee damage by 20%. One of the other traits I recommend for the build is going to be Spirit, which increases my power generation by 25%. Once again, I am a firm believer of being able to get every trait within the course of the game to min-max your overall builds, regardless if it's this one or the next, just because everything synergizes really well together, and in reality, there's no cap limit within this game, so just do as many as you would like. But this is the order I would recommend doing it in for this particular setup. Now, on to some gameplay. Real quick, guys, just wanted to let you know that 94% of you guys that do end up watching my content happen to enjoy it or subscribe, so just be sure to subscribe. It really helps me out, and if you don't like me, you can always unsubscribe later. Thanks, guys. Alright, so with all the gameplay you happen to be seeing here within the course of this build set that I happen to be utilizing is going to take place on Nightmare level difficulty, so keep that in mind. One of the pros of this particular build set is that you'll have a lot of single target based damage, not only with your shotgun but with your melee as well, just synergizing really well with the two rings you happen to be utilizing to be able to mow down your enemies regardless if they are a little bit ways away or if they're right on top of you. Now keep in mind this build is going to minimax on the damage output when you're within 5 to 10 meters away from your target, because that's just how your armor set works. So you want to make sure that you're up close and personal with a lot of the encounters you happen to be going up against, because that's how you're going to minimax your damage in the long run. Another thing to note with this particular setup as a whole is that you are using a little bit heavier set, so your rolls aren't going to be the fastest at the end of the day, but they'll still be quick enough to be able to reposition accordingly, to get out of tight situations, and to be able to take a hit, which is really nice. Tied in with the twisted necklace that you're using, you can take a few hits without actually worrying about going down right away, so that gives you some peace of mind. If you end up getting caught out or cornered or whatever the case may be, you'll be able to tank some of the damage that's pressed onto you, which is really nice. Another particular pro with this build as a whole is that you will have a little bit of range as well as burst fire potential with your submachine gun. Submachine gun is specifically designed if you are pressed up against the corner and you don't really know what to go about doing, or if you need to get that little bit of distance, you'll have the submachine gun to fall back on. So it synergizes really well as a whole, which is really nice. Now, some particular cons with this build is that the maximum DPS output will capitalize primarily off of melee, which is unfortunate, just because if you happen to be in a situation where you can't melee because either you'll die or you don't have the opportunity to do so, you'll have to rely on your shotgun, your submachine gun to do a lot of your DPS in that regard. The only problem is with that is that you will lose out a little bit on DPS when it comes to using your shotgun and submachine gun, just because of how the way the rings work. So keep that in mind when approaching this. It kind of balances out a little bit, however, when you are closer to your enemy, so you just always want to make sure you're playing within about 5-10 feet away from your enemy, just so that way you can capitalize on the maximum DPS you can get from this particular armor set as well as your rings. So it's something to take note of. Another particular downfall with this build is that the reload time is very long. So when it comes down to it, you'll be reloading continuously with the shotgun, so you want to be mindful of that. Keep tabs on your ammo, make sure you're utilizing your ammo crates to just get the faster reload. Make sure you're using frenzy dust too to capitalize on a quicker reload speed. From there, you'll be alright as long as you're micromanaging your ammo accordingly. You shouldn't be caught out by any means, so you should be good in that sense. Now, one of the reasons I ended up put this particular build together is because of the fact that this build is primarily for users to be playing at beginner based levels, meaning that it is a build you can use right off the bat. You don't need anything special, you don't need anything in particular. This build you can utilize right at the get-go. A lot of the amulets rings are all found on Earth by random drops. From there, the armor set, as well as the melee weapons and the range weapons I'm utilizing, could all be picked up before you even leave Ward 13. So that is something to take note of when playing this game for the first time. Now, this build runs very, very well on normal mode. It also runs very, very well on hard mode. And as you can see, you can utilize it in nightmare mode. One of the reasons I am utilizing this in nightmare mode is just to show you the true potential of the build and what it has to offer at the end of the day, and show you that if you wanted to, you can use at higher level difficulties. Of course, it does require a little bit more skill than some of the other builds I have done on my channel, but with that being said, if it's something that you want to continuously carry forward with, or if you want to play right out of the get-go, more of a higher level difficulty, you can do that with this particular build. Keep in mind, I do have every trait active, so that is one thing to note when playing this in nightmare mode, and I am consistently using consumables to be able to support me on areas of where I need to be a little bit more tanky, or just need a little bit more TPS, or so on and so forth. But granted, if you are utilizing this in normal mode or hard mode, you don't have to rely on those consumables as heavily as I do here in nightmare mode, just because those are a little bit easier difficulties. Stuff won't hit as hard, and you won't have to deal with as many enemies on the approach as what I'm dealing with here. So that's one thing to keep in mind when playing on a lower level difficulties with this particular build. But yeah, this build is really nice playing on more of a casual based setting if you're just starting out with the game, or just wanting to go about getting a general idea of how the game works. You don't really know what to run with. This build's a lot of fun, honestly. I had a good time with it. It's lightweight, it's fast. From there, the shotgun's also a lot of fun too. Just blowing people away was a really good time, and it's also nice too to not have to overthink mechanics within the course of the game in regards to what this does to proc this, or how I'm going to go about approaching this. You can just kind of run and gun and don't really have to worry about it too much. It's not really too much of an issue. One thing is to note though, like I said, if you are playing at higher level difficulties, you also want to be procting your active consumables with this particular build to compensate for the areas of where there's no self-healing, and in regards to the speed at which it takes to fire as well as reload. So from there, you want to be utilizing those to be able to compensate with it a little bit. But like I said, this build's really focused around beginner level gameplay. One of the other cool factors with this particular build is that at the end of the day, it works really well against bosses that you can continuously melee. So one of the core concepts is playing at early game that a lot of people don't take mind of is your melee is really good in normal and hard mode. So you want to just continuously melee as much as you can, especially with this particular build, because you'll be able to capitalize on the full aspect of damage, and you won't really be able to scale melee builds at higher levels of difficulty such as Nightmare and Apocalypse. It works, but it doesn't work as well. So from there, using this on an early on casual setting, more for the melee perspective, really works very, very well. So it's definitely something to consider when going about approaching that for the first time, which is really nice. One of the reasons I ended up picking the set I ended up doing for this shotgun as opposed to the rifle or the other base shotgun is just because of the fact that I don't have to reload as much, just because I have 7 shots in the chamber, so I can consistently just burst those out. And from there, it just did the most damage, and it made the most sense since I am closer to my target all the time. One of the reasons I use this submachine gun as my secondary was just because of the fact that the submachine gun scales the best. You can scale this all the way up to Apocalypse if you wanted to. The submachine gun, it's a really nice weapon, so definitely considering getting your hands on it. It's one of those guns you can pick up right before you leave Ward 13 too, so definitely something to take a look at. From there to one of the mods I am using Mending, which drops the healing aura. This works really well because you can drop the healing aura and then you can consistently do melee damage to your target. As long as the target doesn't explode or anything, you're pretty much in the clear, so you don't have to worry about that, which is nice. From there, I'm using Hunter's Mark as well. One of the primary reasons I'm using Hunter's Mark is so I can keep tabs on my enemies, but from there it also amplifies my crit a little bit too, so I'm getting extra crit procs, which is nice. The shotgun has a pretty decent crit ratio to it, especially if you're aiming for the head all the time, which it has a pretty big hitbox for, so you don't really have to worry about missing. especially if you're going to be 5 meters away from the target. So it's one thing to take note of. Plus, it also has a chance of proccing on crit on melees too, which is nice. So at the end of the day, it works really, really well. One of the reasons I ended up picking this set is because it just tied in really well with the rings that you end up picking up early on. With everything being melee and everything synergizing so well, I figured why not? It just makes more sense. Plus, I also like the higher defense. It is one of the tankier sets you can pick up in the beginning of the game, which makes it a little bit more approachable when tied into the amulet. The amulet just gives me a higher armor value, which tied into already a higher armor value set. And plus, since this set isn't the heaviest set in the course of the game, I can still dodge and everything, so I'm pretty much good to go. And I don't really have to worry about it. So yeah, those are reasons I ended up picking up that. The melee weapon I ended up picking up was the Scrapper Sword. Out of the 2 other melees that you can pick up right off the bat, the Scrapper Sword just has a bigger cleave, and it also just does really nice damage. Plus, it also has a piercing attack too, off of like a lunge that you do after sprinting or sliding, and it works really well. Just a well-rounded weapon at the end of the day. It just works pretty good for what you're using it for. From there, at the end of the day, when it comes down to it, when it comes to my build as a whole, I really like it. It's simplistic at the end of the day, but it works really well. I don't have any issues or complaints with it, and from there, it ends up playing out really nicely. So yeah, that's pretty much it, guys, with the build. Nothing really to it. From there, if you guys have any comments, questions, or concerns, just go ahead and post it right down below in the comment section. I'll be happy to go back getting back to you. And from there, I'm just going to let the gameplay play out. But yeah, if you guys haven't already, don't forget to like, favorite, and subscribe. And be sure to leave a comment in regards to what I can do to go about improving. I'm always looking to improve when it comes to YouTube as a whole, and I want to go about streaming more as well. So if that's something you guys happen to be interested in, just let me know. Just post it down below in the comment section, and from there I'll be happy to hear your guys' feedback, because I'm always looking to go about doing better when it comes to Remnant content or just content in general, or whatever the case may be. So yeah, that's going to be pretty much it, guys. But hope you guys are having a good day if you aren't already. From there, I hope to see you guys real soon. Later.